Today on the Topping Show, Matt Roast critiques Disney's new trailer for Moana. Mark Dice roasts Ben Shapiro's ad read for Cars4Kids after allegedly millions were donated, but only a few thousand went to the kids. The 2026 Jeep Recon debuts and starts at $67,000, and Ford expands yet another recall. All of that and much more on the Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of the Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, see your founder at least twice a day. Gotta say he's quite handsome and brilliant. Easy me, see that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or business owner, reach out to the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, still giving away a free Flamethrower with every IT purchase with Picatinny rail adapters that can mount it to any standard AR-15 like all awesome accessories can be. Go to toppingtechnologies.com and click the Flamethrower button to learn more and see me shooting a flamethrower. And lastly, trying to get 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you can click that button and tell your friends and your enemies, I would greatly appreciate it. Going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the 2026 Jeep Recon to start at $67,000. And I shall give you a visual disclaimer. It looks rudimentary at best, almost like a bastardized Ford Bronco. Now, brought to us thanks to Caleb Jacobs, who is a writer at thedrive.com. And brace yourselves, you're going to see the Jeep Recon in none of its glory. Yeah. And they say, quote, the 2026 Jeep Recon starts at no less than $67,000 and has 650 horsepower. He says, quote, we've been hearing about this newest Jeep model for 3 years, and at this point, now it's finally for sale, and it's extra in every way, which, not design. I mean, design-wise, no, it seems to be lacking, at least for me. And they say, quote, it's not often that an entirely new Jeep model comes along, but that's what we have here with the new Recon. It's a unibody off-roader that's powered by batteries and nothing else. Yes, exactly what you want when you're in the middle of nowhere, to have a vehicle powered by batteries. Yeah. This will be another pavement queen for moms to take kids to soccer practice and go to Whole Foods. Now, they say, quote, this historic automaker has been teasing it for a long time, and we've had a pretty good idea on what it looks like for 3 years. Still, this is officially it, and I must say, it's a curious thing. I mean, curiously disappointing. Some pictures of it. I mean, it looks cheap. Well, it's not cheap, but yeah, it doesn't even look that unique. Now they say, quote, the appetite for such a rig is down significantly compared to when Jeep developed it, and even harsher is the regulatory climate it enters to. The EV tax credit is completely gone. Hopefully you and someone else, anyone you know, with a bank account will be still tempted by Recon specs enough to spend $66,995 on one after destination fees. They say it's certainly rapid with 650 horsepower, 620 foot-pound of torque, 0 to 60 per hour happens as little as 3.6 seconds with sport mode active. I'm not sure those are the stats that Jeep people really care about, but hey, it's got them. They say a better way to gauge Recon's off-road potential is by looking at the fundamentals. The four-door only SUV has a wheelbase of 112.9 inches, which is 3.8 inches shorter than the Grand Cherokee and 5.5 inches shorter than Wrangler's Unlimited. Overall, the length is a different story, however, is just 0.2 inches shorter than the Grand Cherokee from nose to the tail and 4.9 inches longer than the four-door Wrangler. Ground clearance is kind of met at 9.1 inches despite the Moab trim, standard 33-inch all-terrain tires. Not that you would want to, but here you can see closer pictures of the new Jeep. Yeah. Comical at best. Now, continuing the article, they say, quote, I'm sure those tires have a lot to do with the Recon's max range, estimated to be 250 miles. That's it? Supposed to be an off-roader? Yeah, that's not a lot of range if you're actually going to somewhere to go off-roading than actually, pushing the gas pedal a little bit. Now, they say, quote, the boxy bodywork has a big role to play in it. I'm curious to see how far it can charge with the doors off. At least you don't need tools to remove them. They say Jeep notes in its press releases that the Recon features Cell-Tech terrain traction management. That's a 5-mode system that you can toggle for different weather and surfaces, and Moab model gets a 6 model for rocks. It also has a locking rear differential when it comes to the hardware, though the front diffs is completely open. Here you can see one of the biggest bragging points they have is this you remove the rear window. I mean, you need basically 2 people to do it. You unhinge it from the inside and you pop it out. That is a feature they're very much proud of. They note that interior is admittedly snazzy, and it's clear that this is in the leagues above the base Wrangler. A 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster is standard. And next to it, a big old 14.5-inch horizontal infotainment display that's apparently the largest fitted in a Jeep. It runs on familiar Uconnect 5 operating system, which features a new Trails off-road app that provides comprehensive guide to off-road routes throughout the US and Canada. And because the Recon is an EV, it also provides dynamic range mapping to help you plan charging on long trips. And then they say, or even medium ones, really. Which, yeah, that's the downside. You're not going to be taking this on any long trip anytime soon. Again, the Wrangler is, well, comically unreliable, but you can at least throw on extra gas jugs in the back so you can actually refuel it if you're in the middle of nowhere easily. Now, they also say, quote, I think the Recon is cool in theory, but I'm not sure how it will be in practice given the price tag. If off-roading is your number one priority, the Wrangler Rubicon Unlimited is a clear choice for $12,000 less? No one's going to buy this crap. You can even get a Wrangler Rubicon 4xe plug-in hybrid for less. Well, you'd have to really not want to get a gas engine to go with the Recon, or at least not a Wrangler. Maybe that's you, though. I suspect no, that is going to be like no one. So it's more expensive, more impractical, more unreliable than a regular Wrangler with a gas engine. I suppose there's a market for this, but again, I suppose the market for this, or I'm guessing the market for this is like 18 people. Maybe? Again, in all realistic scenarios, this will be used as a payment queen to take kids to the soccer practice and the Whole Foods. Or you might have to go to Walmart if you buy this. That's a lot of money to spend. You might have to reallocate some of their budget. But it's just ridiculous. I don't know. Have an off-roader that can't really off-road. It's EV only, 250-mile range before you actually push the vehicle, or load it up with all your camping gear and all your other stuff. But it's finally debuted. Also, that $7,500 tax incentive, that's gone. So I think EV sales in general will continue to decrease in frequency. And I can't think, at this price point, who's going to buy this thing? Again, that's just 67 grand. If you're really into off-roading, you're just going to get the Wrangler. As much as I make fun of that for being an abomination of reliability, it sells pretty well, and it's got a huge support in terms of third-party parts, maintenance, upgrades. Even the off-roading community has entire Jeep groups, and they give each other thousands of ducks a year. And they put them on the dashboard, which I suppose is good. If you get an accident, the ducks might hit you as extra interesting thing to happen, I guess. I don't know. They collect the ducks, that's the thing. But yeah, it's interesting. It finally debuted. I think it's a little too, the price tag is too much. And it's a little bit too late in terms of the trends. But I mean, like, do you think this will survive more than one season of being sold before they cancel it? I can't think this will just be yet another loss for Stellantis as they try to someday get to profitability again. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the Cultural Department podcast, you have Matt Walsh roasting the upcoming trailer for Disney's movie called Moana. Now, Disney apparently said, Moana arriving only in theaters July 10th, 2026. Watch the teaser below. Which, that's about 59 seconds, but I'm sure it'll feel like an eternity. This is Disney's Moana, apparently.
I am a girl who loves my island, and the girl who loves the sea. It calls me.
So yes, there's a lot of special effects and AI and fancy graphic cards were used to make this trailer. I mean, what is it about? A girl likes an island. A bird comes to the island. There's a whale hitting a one drum, dancing with the cliche Hawaiian leaf neck thingamajig of the necklace. The bug turns into a guy, apparently. There's ghost-looking ships. Is this Avatar 2.0? No. Looks like a stone figurine comes to view as leaves move. There's a ship. Looks like discount Ewoks from Star Wars are on the ship. They slide down a rope, and the guy who was a bug jumps in the. Now he becomes a bird, and then he flies, and she yells. Why would you see this movie? Where's the conflict? Where's the intrigue? A girl likes an island, so what? But it is Disney, so idiots will pay a lot of money no matter what. Now, Matt Walsh responded, saying, quote, "Everyone says that the movie industry is collapsing because they keep churning out low-effort slop. But this is a shot-for-a-shot remake of a movie that came out 12 seconds ago, and it will make $100 trillion at the box office. Sad reality is that low-effort slop is the only thing anyone is willing to see." And Matt Walsh got about 500,000 views and 3.5 thousand likes, which, I don't think so. I think a lot of people liked Oppenheimer that made $1 billion. So, that being said, so did Barbie. But, again, there are some things where people are willing to pay a premium. But then again, people paid over $1 billion to see the Fast and Furious 9 or 10 film. Maybe that's right here. I mean, maybe it's rose-tinted glasses, but in terms of, telling a story, well, no, there's a lot of, high mental equilibrium, really itches your brain to watch like a Marvel film. Obviously not. As Quentin Tarantino famously said, it's a roller coaster of a movie. Not much thought or plot, really. But maybe, is it nostalgia? Or have movies gotten dumber and lamer? They certainly seem to be relying more on special effects the past couple years. And it seems like they try to substitute out quality for just having things be, special FX. But again, there are some movies where no matter what, people will see it. Like the Fast and Furious, what are they on, 50 movies? Which, nothing makes you feel old than thinking and realizing that the first Fast and Furious film was about street racing and stealing TV VCR combos, where the TV was a tube TV, and inside that awesomeness of engineering was a VCR slot and a VCR player for you to play your entertainment. That was the high value items they were stealing from the semi trucks in the original Fast and Furious film. Which, yes, that was a very long time ago, back when they had a plot and they were based in reality. And now they're superheroes, got superhero strength, they're jumping cars from building to buildings. They're basically discount Marvel. Obviously, it's Universal, but yeah, maybe Matt has a point here. Seems like movies just seem to be decreasing quality, but people pay it. There's some franchises with people, Star Wars being the biggest offender. Doesn't matter how much Kathleen Kennedy butchers that brand and that story, people still paid billions of dollars to see that crap. Now, one of the first comments comes to us thanks to Matt Walsh, who continues saying, quote, "It's also not really live action. It's mostly animated shot-for-shot remake of an animated film. Perhaps the least inspired, most low-effort thing Hollywood has ever done, and it will break box office records. Getting 1.2 thousand likes." Which, it's got the word Disney on it. People will probably continue to buy it no matter what. One of the first comments that isn't Matt Walsh comes to us thanks to Joey FAFO. This picture of a guy says, "At least Tarzan will always be white because Disney won't have the balls to make a black man on screen acting like a monkey." Getting 144 likes. Danny Hall also says there's animation, there's great animation, but there's the bit in Disney's Robin Hood where the snake crosses his arms. Getting 264 likes, which, wow, as a core memory unlocked, that's kind of funny. Again, it's not supposed to, in terms of realistic. Yeah, they had to take some liberties. MSB, it's the meme of the trombone where you have the student holding trombone, putting it on someone's head. The trombone is labeled "putting AI into every effing thing imaginable." The person holding the trombone is big companies. The person getting hit and blasted is people who never asked. That got 60 likes. Justin McDaniel says Disney was fine with white erasure, but they do not dare or touch a race that is race or ethnicity of non-white, gained 37 likes. Anton Chancellor says, what about your next movie? And it's an AI generated picture or a meme of Matt Walsh that says, am I Jewish? 0 likes. We also have The Tree Godfather said Hollywood is anti-white. It says Hollywood's recipe for anti-whiteism. The white guy is always the bad guy or the villain. The black guy is a hero genius. The gay guy is the voice of reason. The woman has the balls. Dad is a drunken idiot. Mother is a breadwinner or boss. Children are sexualized. No intact white nuclear family. Which, yeah, that's also cartoons. Like most famously, The Simpsons and Family Guy. They always had the father, married with children. They always had the father being a moron, usually overweight, low IQ, and usually an asshole. I don't think that's the number one reason why people are not getting married in 2025. But I think one of the contributing variables is just the cultural decay and lack of respect for the nuclear family. And again, you also have, the cliche happy wife, happy life, or the wife gets everything, the husband gets nothing, perpetuated with Hollywood. So I can think there's some substance to his meme there. Founding says, quote, the AI music industry apocalypse is already happening too. Human musicians have been replaced, and we went out with a whisper, not a bang, getting 61 likes. Egg. Profile picture is pretty appropriate, is in fact of a egg. He says, quote, good boy, now talk more about the culture war. Is Nick Fuentes yelling, getting 17 likes. No Dice says, focus on Catholic theology rather than slop movies then, getting 11 likes. Kav says Disney adults will be the bulk of it, which is pathetic, getting 2 likes, which, yeah, Disney adults are something else. Umat Taran says, quote, the market is always right, no matter how low of quality. The entertainment industry isn't collapsing, it's optimizing for maximum conversion with the lowest common denominator. It's a mirror of society's willingness to accept slop when the cost mental effort. Don't blame the producers for meeting demand. Blame the demand for being cheap. Where are you still accepting low effort slop in your own business or investment portfolio? In 13 likes. Going down more and more. C.F. Dalton says, quote, my hypothesis is that the ever-shrinking generations of young people, there's no audience to watch the new stuff. All Hollywood can do is churn out reboots or sequels to pander to older audiences who have forgotten that they initially loved wasn't that great to begin with. Getting 3 likes. Yep. I mean, you have declining birth rates in the United States more and more. So yeah, there's less kids to actually market to. Let's see. Fear Speech says, who runs Hollywood? Getting 4 likes. The Himajimi says, quote, go watch a classic from the 1990s and even 2000s. The writing, the acting, the production are so clearly and carefully coordinated that every cutscene and part is particularly carefully pieced together to create a great movie. Take a horror film like Sling Blade with its cinematography, lighting, and lines. They're all brought together to create a masterpiece. Today we get junk and or remakes, and it will never inspiring, always trashy. Disney has now spent 15 years producing live-action remakes, which in many cases remaking scenes much worse than the original. As a Setophile, it really does disgust me. Gained 21, make it 22 likes. But again, people keep buying that crap. I do think the Fast and Furious franchise is one of the poster childs of it. It was like every movie gets dumber and dumber in terms of it's less realistic, it's less about street fighting, it's more superhero crap. It's unreal. It just gets worse and worse, and yet it keeps printing money. So of course, Universal Studios is just going to keep going down that road and make over $1 billion a film. You also have Bay Harbor Groiper saying, quote, you're tweeting about children's movies while the right wing is completely divided. You only cared about America First this much, getting 20 likes, which, I mean, Matt covers a lot of that too as well in terms of other cultural topics. It's not just movies. Let's see. Anthony Velasquez says, quote, there's no good movies anymore. Hollywood sucks ass. Disney is woke shit. Everywhere they have some gays or lesbian kids or in kids shows. It's all slop, and people make so much money for a slop, getting 2 likes. Ron 2K says, this only works until it doesn't. You know what, Matt? It's just like the superhero genre. It worked until it didn't. Eventually, the public outgrows it. They get tired of it. They've already seen it. The live action slop will be the same. Getting 3 likes, which, maybe. I mean, again, I think one of the reasons Marvel, when they used to print money, one of the reasons they become less and less popular is because they did decrease the quality of the stories. They tried to insert things that didn't belong, like, what was it, the female Captain America or Captain Planet, whatever they call her name. And they made some big errors and caused them to lose a lot of money on a lot of those films. But again, it used to be, putting a good actor, putting a good actress, good plot, they make billions of dollars. We also have Dr. Jenkins says, quote, that's because remakes are the only shows that people will trust not to be completely awful at this point. The reason Moana will make money is because it's based off a show with stellar writing and execution, something Hollywood has proven they can't do anymore, getting 5 likes. I also think it's a contributing factor in terms of people being comfortable with what they know already. It remakes, which I'm not really a fan of most of them. There's a lot of that familiarity, so I'll be more willing to, I was about to say invest. Going to see movies is not investment. You debate, you're investing your time, but yeah, it's a sunk cost. I've yet to go to a movie and come out more, and nevertheless, it's entertainment. But yeah, it's one of those things where, most of these movies nowadays, I mean, geez Louise, it's like $20-$30 just for a freaking ticket. I can't imagine paying for a movie and spending hours to see it. But yeah, let me know, do you think the movie quality has decreased past couple of years, or is it kind of a little bit of nostalgia? It's always been this bad? Let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Going over to the political part podcast, you have Mark Dice roasting Ben Shapiro, Cars for Charity ad read, as apparently millions were donated, but only a couple thousand went to the kids. And when I first started the show, I had an issue. I had a couple people subscribed. I spoke faster than Ben Shapiro and more awkwardly than Joe Biden trying to come upstairs. Obviously, you could see. But as I slowly but surely gain more subscribers, I become slightly more articulate. Now, granted, some people might argue I've barely improved, though I would argue statistically speaking, there has been some improvement. This leads to my theory. The more people that click that subscribe button, the better I get at speaking, and someday I will make it entirely through an episode speaking perfectly and articulately. Granted, some people might say it's a pie in the sky dream, but gotta dream for something. Again, click that button and tell your friends and your enemies. Your enemies might be so enamored and impressed in your choice of podcast material that they then become your friends. Or they find me so visually and visceral disgusting that they are more irate at you and becomes a physical altercation. So maybe I shouldn't recommend it. Either way, make for an interesting story. So tell your friends and tell your enemies. Now, again, this is Mark Dice critiquing Ben Shapiro. You can get the YouTube working, which, well, there's always usually a lot of issues with that. As it tries to, there we go. Mark Dice here.
You won't believe the shady charity that Ben Shapiro was associated with, and what they don't tell people about all of the tens of millions of dollars they raise and what they really do with that money. Well, actually, I mean, you probably will believe it if you know anything about Ben Shapiro, but you should be aware of it. And Ben Shapiro should be ashamed of it. He should apologize. Actually, really probably should be arrested for engaging in deceptive practices.
I appreciate that, but I will comfort myself tonight by sleeping on my bed made of money.
I'm sure we have an adult. Oh. I'm sure we have another adult subject to talk about.
Well,
subscribe to my channel if you're new here, because this is going to be another banger, as the kids say. And check back on a regular basis, because as you will soon see, you won't find another channel like this anywhere else. And then we'll get into what Ben Shapiro has to say about the Epstein files, because that's the big talk of the town. Although people shouldn't get their hopes up, because if there was really anything there, the Democrats would have released them back last year, trying to stop President Trump from winning the 2024 presidential election. But get a load of this.
A child's life is molded by his or her home, school, friends, community. A positive experience in all those areas helps build a healthy child. Kars4Kids, that's Cars with a K, is a registered nonprofit organization that gives kids the tools to succeed in life.
Now that's the big thing. Kars4Kids, spelled with a K. Which, for years, I didn't realize there's 2 separate companies that do the same damn thing. And the other one is technically legally labeled it's called America Can Kars4Kids, spelled with a C. And just going to Grok, just ask them, what's the difference? Now they say, quote, America Can Kars4Kids, again, that's spelled C-A-R-S for kids. That is a Texas-based 501c3 nonprofit operating since 1992, runs a car donation program explicitly named Kars4Kids. It claims 100% net profits go directly to supporting at-risk youth through education, food, housing, clothing, and other necessities. And now they look at their expense ratio. Looks like it's pretty good. They note that there's some concerns throughout history in terms of, are they giving enough to the charities? But most of them are saying, what is it? Let's see here. Exact percentages, 19 review. And then they have Kars4Kids spelled with a K. Now, that one is, again, going to Grok, Kars4Kids with a K. This is a national Jewish-focused car organization charity, often misheard as Kars4Kids due to its jingle and familiar name. It funds program via the sister organization, ORAH, spelled O-O-R-A-H, but has faced criticism for misleading ads about low local impact. They note the program expense ratio is 44% of expenses go to programs helping kids. They say education, camps. This is according to FY 2012-2014 data, consisting of recent reports. And they say, again, 41% for that year, 2023-2024. They get a 2-star rating from Charity Navigator. They spend about 28 to 33% on fundraising. And they note that up to FY 2023, only 1% benefited local kids in some states. And the example they took was from Minnesota. Again, I don't think I think very few people actually realize America Can, Cars for Kids, is different from Cars for Kids with a K. And again, I've heard of the original one since I was a kid. The stupid jingles were brilliant. I mean, you still remember that annoying song to this day, decades later. Again, that was American Can. Again, the legal name is America Can, and theirs is Cars for Kids with a C. Again, back to Mark Dyson, his analysis here.
If you got a car that's just sitting in your driveway taking up space, you should consider donating it to Cars for Kids. You remember Cars for Kids? They're the folks with that catchy jingle, 1877 Cars.
Yes, we've seen their commercials plastered all over cable news, and now Ben Shapiro is promoting them. But what could possibly be so shady about a charity helping underprivileged kids in your community? Well, stay tuned.
If you're tired of looking at that old car in your driveway or hearing your spouse complain about it, why not let Cars for Kids take care of it for you? Here's how it works. Visit their website at cars4kids.org/Ben. Let them take it from there. The whole process only takes 2 minutes. Cars for Kids will schedule a pickup at a time that's convenient for you. If you don't have a car, you can still help. Cars for Kids accepts.
I'll spare you from having to listen to any more of his whiny voice. Obviously, on the surface, it looks just like an ordinary plug. And most YouTubers, as you know, will promote any product or service basically and pretend to care about it, pretend that it's good for the money from these companies. Someone with an audience of Ben Shapiro's size likely getting $5,000 per plug.
Damn.
So Ben Shapiro has paid likely $5,000 just for this one plug alone. But as Paul Harvey used to say, here's the rest of the story.
The charity is under fire by the Minnesota Attorney General's office. It says between 2012 and 2014, Cars for Kids raised $3 million in the state through car donations, but less than $12,000 went to Minnesota kids.
So that's about
$11,600 to be precise.
Third of 1% from the money that they raised over several years just in Minnesota alone that went to help children in Minnesota. Not even 1/3 of the money, which would be $1 million, which would still be shady as hell. Not even 1%, 1/3 of 1%. But I mean, what's next? Are we going to find that the rest of the $3 million went to help Ben Shapiro's favorite ethnic group back on the East Coast? Oh, wait, what's this?
Where does the money go? 90% of the monies donated go to a sister organization, URA, a New Jersey-based charity that operates Jewish youth summer camps in New York.
That's fine if people want to raise money for Orthodox.
And again, that's a good thing. You're to support them. I don't think the average consumer, Daily Wire fan, realizes that most of the money is, especially if you're a resident of Minnesota, or as I pejoratively like to call it, Minnesota, most of that money is going outside the state for specific people.
Jews, but they need to be clear and state that's what the purpose is.
And when Ben Shapiro was shilling for this charity, he didn't mention at all that it was going to a certain ethnic group of children. He didn't say it. It didn't say it on the bottom of the screen, not even in any fine print. Just an absolutely garbage, shady plug from really one of the most shady podcasters in America. When a Christian or a Catholic charity raises money to help those who are less fortunate and in need, they don't discriminate against the people who they're giving that aid to. When you hear of any Christian or Catholic charity helping the community, they're helping anyone and everyone who needs it. But what a surprise, Ben Shapiro partnering with an organization and not disclosing to the audience who it's actually benefiting, while giving the impression that it's just helping kids who are in need, no matter what community or ethnic group or religion they may be in. Once again, perpetuating the very worst stereotypes of Jewish people. Ben Shapiro is like the very worst spokesperson for Israel and for Jews. This is far worse than the email collection scheme that the Daily Wire launched earlier this year, where they claimed that it was to get a petition going to try to convince President Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin, the white police officer who was thrown in prison for years, many years, because he arrested George Floyd when Floyd had the notorious overdose. He was blamed for that. So they launched the website pardonderek.com to go and sign the petition with your name and your email address. And then they're going to present it to President Trump, trying to convince him to pardon Derek Chauvin, which, even if they would, or he would, wouldn't matter because he was indicted and convicted on state charges. So President Trump pardoning him on federal charges wouldn't get him released from prison. But the whole...
And they only did that after there's a huge cultural shift and more people wanted to support him. And there was, the time was very interesting. Now, in terms of Mark Dice critiquing Ben Shapiro, not being a vanguard or a good representative for Jewish people, in terms of brand awareness and actually bringing people to church or synagogue, I think Ben Shapiro is one of the biggest example or best well-known representatives of the Jewish faith in terms of I have friends who were Jewish. They got more involved in their churches or synagogues, organizations, because Ben Shapiro made it hip again. Not too dissimilar how Steven Crowder and a couple other folks are making Catholicism. Charlie Kirk. A lot of folks who really increase the not just awareness, but really get people motivated to go to church. Now, go to the comments when the first one comes to us. Thanks to Seth Black says, he'll tell you it's anti-Semitic to point out he's committing fraud, getting 2,000 likes. Which, I don't know if this should technically be considered fraud. Again, it's still a charity. It is kind of weird that, again, they're raising the money and most of the money then goes to another nonprofit. I don't think the average person is aware of how that's working. And again, how the money is being allocated. And again, there are probably some Jewish camps and nonprofits and some Catholic kids in Minnesota. I would also be pretty annoyed if I was if I lived in that state, thank God I don't, and I were to give away my car, which, well, I only have one car, I wouldn't do that. But it's an instance where if only $11,600 of the $3 million raised, we're giving to kids, and then I don't even know how much of that is local. I'd be pretty skeptical. That's one of the reasons I'm very skeptical to give it any large organization or nonprofit. I try to keep many of my donations local, almost to the point where individual people I'm helping are very much a localized nonprofit or church that's more effective and using a majority of the money for its direct local impact. Because if I was someone in Minnesota getting my car, I'd be pretty annoyed that, again, $11,600 of the $3 million raised went to actual kids, and also they're not local. Again, it's good to help people all over the world. Depending on your belief system, I mean, maybe you want to be more local, more national, to your country, to your state, what have you. I definitely don't think it's as transparent. Now, in terms of, will this be as controversial as the Wounded Warrior program years ago, when it was found out that majority of the costs were going to administration fees, administration staff, and very little was actually little is actually being given to actual veterans who needed help. I don't think there'd be as much backlash, just because, again, the average person doesn't even know there's two separate Cars4Kids companies or nonprofits. And again, it's just so culturally ingrained in the United States with that stupid, again, I keep calling it stupid jingle. It's annoying, but it's very effective because you remember it. I actually do wonder, will this impact their donations at all? You also have JW5385 says, sorry, bad grammar. So Ben is Dreaming People Out, getting 2.3 thousand likes. Now Presenting says, Merry Christmas, everyone. Crisis King, getting 61 likes. Donna says, Ben Shapiro's initiatives aren't BS for nothing, getting 361 likes. Somebody named Reed Cornwell says, should be called Cars4Kids from the start, getting 1,000 likes. The guy says, imagine a Jew cheating people out of money, getting 988 likes. Anti-Semitic, but geez Louise, almost 1,000 likes. Osborne says, watching the collapse of the Daily Wire is beyond satisfying to watch, getting 30 likes. Island Gaming says that's some real jujitsu right there, spelled J-E-W, getting 829 likes. Tony Stark says, never trust Ben Shapiro, getting 1,000 likes. The Yellowstone Man says, quote, NGOs and charities are created to launder money to avoid taxes, getting 555 likes, which I'm sure some of them are, absolutely, but I would argue the average nonprofit just wants to have a positive impact on the world. Again, not all of them. Some of them, yeah, pretty shady. I'm pretty sure they are only used for tax advantages, but I don't think all of them. RS72098 says, quote, if a Christian church did this, it would be the story of left-wing news 24/7. atheist who would mention it every day, getting 232 likes. Billy Bob says, this is why I don't support charities pushed by celebrities, getting 74 likes. Let's see. My Cuddly Fish says, it's incredible how vicious they become for even asking why America should give to Israel, getting 448 likes. Tony Burnett says, can anyone stand Ben Shapiro anymore, getting 305 likes. Draco says, those cars were promised 3,000 years ago, getting 175 likes. Marcel Fenestra says, quote, remember the USS Liberty, gave 131 likes. A lot of people just say, because saying Christ is king, Ben Shapiro's done. Which again, it's still a multi-million-dollar business at the Daily Wire. I do wonder how many people unchecked that resubscribe box when their annual subscription came up. I mean, I did. I think Matt Walsh is a pretty good reporter or podcaster. I appreciate his material. But yeah, just in terms of cutting the media cost, I just couldn't justify it anymore. But let me know your thoughts, because as always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now, going over to the business blunder of the day, you have Ford expanding one of their recalls, this time 20,000 more SUVs. That was brought to us thanks to Corvin, who is a writer at Cars.com. And she says, quote, 20,000 plus Ford Escape Lincoln Corsair PHEVs being recalled for a fire risk, which, ooh, I'm sorry, I should put a visual disclaimer on the screen. Now you have to see a Lincoln SUV, which, Lord knows those aren't attractive. Now, they say, quote, Ford is expanding a recall from late 2024 that involves more than 20,500 examples of its Escape and Lincoln Corsair plug-in hybrid SUVs. As they clarify, Lincoln is Ford's luxury arm, which enjoys thousands of sales per year. I'm like partially exaggerating and kidding. Ford used to have Mercury, Jaguar, Range Rover, Aston Martin. They used to have a lot of things. Now it's just Ford, and then Lincoln is hanging in there somehow. Now, they note that there's an issue with the battery that may cause a fire. They note the affected vehicle model years of 2020 to 2024, Escape PHEVs, and model year 2021 to 2024 Corsair PHEVs. The issue is that the manufacturing defect in one or more of the high voltage battery cells may result in a short circuit and cause the battery to fail, thereby increasing the risk of a loss of power to the vehicle and a fire, which could result in a crash or injury, which, yes, that is articulately put. Fire could increase the risk of an injury. Now, they say that, quote, the remedy is currently under development. At the time, owners are advised to only use auto EV mode and will be instructed via mail to limit maximum battery charge. Letters notifying owners will be mailed out December 1st. Or just tune in the Topping Show, where we usually cover these recalls weeks or months before they're actually mailed out. They say this recall expands and replaces a previous recall number 24V954. Owners can contact Ford at 866-436-7332 for additional information and check for specific SKU is affected. And I guess one of those things where, again, SUVs, well, maybe not these, but they're usually the most profitable, important parts of the company's portfolio, automotive industry. They usually lose money on most other vehicles. And I don't know how Ford still has the Lincoln brand for some reason. Ford has had over 115 recalls in 2025, an industry record. I mean, it's becoming laughable at this point. And you have yet another expansion of a recall. This, and again, thankfully, it sounds like no one's gotten hurt from this, so the guy had a recall in that regard somewhat. But yet another chiseling away at your brand reputation. Gotta say, Ford, you're once again the business blunder of the day. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, try to get 6,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so click that button. I greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, and comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how to make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell enemies, tell anyone, everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.